What's up, everybody? Cole Sands Fishing here. This is the fishing report for March 6th, 2023. Let's get into this week's report. So this week's report is brought to you by two of my awesome sponsors. One of them is a new one, Rocky Boots. Super excited to be with them this year. I've been wearing Rocky Boots ever since I was a young kid growing up in Fairbanks, Alaska. So definitely have been using them for a long time and super happy because, I'm not just a fisherman. I'm an outdoorsman. They make great hunting boots, great hiking boots, as well as great fishing boots. And I've already made a couple posts on my Facebook and Instagram page, so y'all be sure to check those out. And then Tumlin Real Estate. Tumlin, man, they're great people. Angela and Dennis, they serve all over the eastern Tennessee area, and they'll get you results. This is a great time to buy houses and buy land, and they're definitely somebody to point you in the right direction. So y'all be sure to give them a follow and a like on Facebook, and give them a call if you're in the market. But let's get to this week's report. So this past week, I just got back from my two Florida tournaments on the Elite Series. I'm sure a lot of y'all kept track. Okeechobee was a disaster. Didn't trust my gut. Did not do well. And then Seminole was a good tournament. I felt like I made great decisions. I wasn't on a whole lot, so I was happy to make the top 50 cut, get a good check, and move on to the next one. But got back, had a guy trip Tuesday, fished Wednesday and Thursday as well. And Tuesday was kind of interesting. I definitely, it was my first time back in almost a month, or I guess 3 weeks. Had to run around a lot, but when we got on them, we caught them good. Like you'd go an hour or two without a bite, but once we got a bite, it seemed like we could catch several off the same spot. And it was pretty simple. We caught all of our fish Tuesday on a Yozuri Rattler Vibe, and a half-ounce jackhammer chatterbait. The Rattler Vibe color we were throwing was matte crawfish. Definitely seemed to like red the best that day. Probably ended up catching at least 20 fish. We caught probably, I don't know, 15 off one spot. So we might even have closer to 30 fish. And then we also caught them, like I said, a half-ounce jackhammer, throwing the red one, the fire crawl. Throwing both of these baits. I'll show you all my rods and reel setups and all that, but they're down at the boat right now. But throwing both of these on a 7.2 medium heavy Sermon Series Witch Doctor tackle rod. That's the half glass, half graphite model they have, which is perfect for the chatterbait and rattle trap. And we just kind of bounced around, caught them on flat areas more or less, in like 2 to 6 foot of water. A lot of the places we caught them good Tuesday were grassy areas, little ditches in the grass or little turns in it, or even little clumps of grass that was a little bit thicker. But that was pretty much it for that day. Just covered a lot of water, put the trolling motor on high. And then Wednesday, I spent the day looking for kind of some places I haven't hit in a year or two. And even some new places. I caught some fish Wednesday on places I've never caught fish at before. Just, it kind of felt right. And the deal there was the same deal. Pretty much Wednesday, we caught them all on two baits again, being the Yozuri Rattler Vibe and the Matt Crawl. Also caught several on the Rayburn Red Crawfish, and we did catch a couple good 4-pounders on the citrus shad as well, just giving them a little different look. It seems like sometimes you get in some areas and they want to eat more shad profile baits, and other times it's more of a crawfish deal, but definitely always have both tied on right now, a shad pattern and a crawfish pattern. But it's kind of the same deal. We targeted a lot of staging areas where there was a last little bit of deep water in a creek. Ditches were definitely one of our main players, and it just seemed to be that 2 to 6 foot range. It seemed like the bigger fish we caught were more like that 4 to 7 foot range even. I think those were the females, just kind of not quite pushed up yet. And then, secondary points back in the creeks, the last points before you get super shallow, seem to be really good for us. And we also caught them on a 8-inch mag draft, throwing it in the same areas. Our bigger fish that day actually came on a Rattler Vibe, believe it or not, but we did catch several on that 8-inch mag draft as well. And didn't fish any grass Wednesday. It was more just, points, stumps, stuff like that. And had a pretty good day. We probably caught 30 fish and, probably had 21 pounds in our best 5. And then Thursday, we had a ton of rain Wednesday night. Most of my areas got blown out, and it was tough. Thursday, we ran all over the place and honestly didn't catch them that great. Probably caught 7 or 8 bass, nothing real big, and that was it. Looking back, probably should have spent some more time on the bank throwing like a Yozuri flat side and a diamond bait spinner bait. But, I just, this time of year, I want to catch them grouped up so bad. So we stayed pretty much off the bank most of the day. We tried some different things. We caught a few here and there doing this and that, but You know, we hit, I don't know, 30, 40 spots trying to get something going. It just never really worked out Thursday. But as a whole, it was, you know, Tuesday and Wednesday especially were really good days. Caught a ton of fish. And definitely that time of year, man, the fish are pre-spawn. They're getting ready to move up and really spawn. The water temp's already like 60 degrees in a lot of areas, which is a little bit warm for what I like. Because what happens here in this lake, once that water starts getting in the low 60s, the fish don't care near as much about feeding and they start caring about spawning, but it's still a little bit early for them to spawn. And it's just the deal where the fish are just kind of in a funk. But needless to say, there's still fish to be caught. I love throwing that rattling vibe. That's one of my favorite things ever. So I love covering a ton of water with it. And then just going forward for the next couple of weeks, I think it's going to be the same thing. Grass, if you can find it, it's going to be good with a trap and a chatterbait. And then those little drains or the little last deep places and little funnels for fish to either stage up on or you know, travel through is going to be, I think, going to be the best stuff and what to look for. So, you know, this next couple weeks as I'm going out, what I'm going to look for is that depth range of, you know, even a foot of water. We caught some fish Wednesday and maybe 6 inches. I mean, they were super shallow, but it seems like the bigger fish are at least in 3 foot right now from what I've seen. So that 3 to 6 foot range, just throwing that trap around, putting it on 16-pound Yozuri T7 fluorocarbon and covering a lot of water. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this week. Like I said, it was a chatterbait, a rattling vibe, and a big swim bait were pretty much our 3 baits. We did catch 1 or 2 on the flat side Yozuri Thursday when it got muddy, but that was pretty much it for the week. So good luck on the water, everybody, and I'll try to catch y'all next time.